Hello and welcome back to Tales Arcane. My goal for this year, as many of you know, is to try and post a new Tales Arcane video every week. The more produced scripted videos that I do where I have moving images behind me and I'm trying to convey as much information as possible per minute in a relatively short video. In between those videos, I want to post more relaxed conversational videos like this one, where we have minimal editing, we just have one standard image that appears behind me throughout the video, and I basically just talk about something that's on my mind that relates to D&D or TTRPGs. These videos are going to be a bit more rambly, but I hope that for those of you who watch and enjoy these ones, you're finding some value in them, and I hope that you don't mind my posting them, because it gives me a little kind of detox almost between the longer videos, and it allows me to keep posting and chatting to you guys even when I don't have time to do something that's a little bit more in-depth. So the topic of our last video in this style, this sort of relaxed video, was starting a new campaign and the world building for that new campaign. How much energy I was putting into the world map, into individual regions. And building on that, I want to talk today about the first session of that campaign. The first session of a new campaign with new player characters who all are acting as they don't know each other in the game. Obviously they're friends in real life, but in the game they're all strangers to each other. And I've had to essentially work out a first session that brings them all together, gets the action moving, and also starts developing the themes and aesthetic of the campaign and the world that they're in, because it's an entirely new setting, and from the word go I want to start making them feel like this is this new gothic, dark horror setting that we're moving into after a more classic fantasy one in the last campaign. Now, I actually have already run the session. I ran the session last night. I'm not going to talk in too much depth about the intricacies of that session and how it all went down, because it pretty much all went down the way I expected it to. What I will just talk about really is the planning process, how I prepped for that session, and what elements I tried to build in, bearing in mind that it was the very first session of the campaign. At intervals throughout this video, I'll probably stop and drink from this enormously oversized water bottle. So, the real process for prepping this session began with the individual players and their backstories. I went to all of the players and I said, send me over your backstory and then I will find ways to slot that backstory into the world. They didn't know anything about the world beyond the fact that it was a sort of vaguely medieval, slightly horror themed setting. So they all wrote their characters up, they sent me their backstories. I then approached the backstories and made some small edits to them just to make sure that they fit into the world and the setting. They'd left some place names blank, I filled them in with place names from our world. And then I went back to them and I said, these are phenomenal, now give me one thing you want to do in the starting zone. I told them a little bit about the starting zone, the Duchy of Withervale, which is a kind of a regional area that they'll have time probably across 10 to 20 sessions to explore and get to know, maybe longer depending on what they do. And I said, here's the map of that, here's a little bit of lore, tell me what you want to do in this map. And so one of them wanted to go on a bit of a sort of spiritual pilgrimage and visit a particular ancient tree that has importance to the people who brought him up. One of them wanted to join the military as kind of a way to get away from their dark past. So they're on their way to try and sign up to this kind of elite military force that is based in Withervale, the region, and so on. And so as I developed these, or as they developed these ideas of their goals, they relayed them back to me, and I started to build those goals into the world as well, fleshing out certain areas, because I know now that those are the areas the players are probably going to go and visit and engage with. But the key thing here was that I was able to start looking at the trajectory that the players would be going on to get to their goals, and I was able to start developing the setting and the plot to make sure that those trajectories all intersected and brought the party together. Because often the hardest part is to find an organic, natural way to bring all these strangers together, then get them to fuse into an adventuring party and stick together. That's not always easy to do. So I essentially made a couple of tweaks to their current stories to make sure that they all end up in the same place. And that could be as little as just saying, okay, in your backstory you said you were entering Withervale from this area. Instead, it would be great if you could have come in through this valley instead, because the first town you'll hit is Hallowbridge, and that's where I want the game to begin. With another player, it was a matter of saying, okay, I know you're going to the north, and Hallowbridge is in the south. But your family's in the south, so perhaps you've gone to see them first, and now you're going on your pilgrimage to the north. And so you have to go through Hallowbridge, and suddenly we've got a little bit of an intersection there, and so on. And pretty soon we had all the players with pretty justifiable reasons to end up in the town of Hallowbridge in the southern kind of lower area of the map. So, now we've got all the players in one place, how do we bring them together? Now, I am a sucker for a tavern start. I know that it's a bit cliche, but I really love the fantasy feeling of all the players, strangers sitting around the tavern, being drawn together by an inciting incident. For me, the problem with tavern starts, traditionally, is that they are a bit awkward, because you end up with all the players sitting around a table in the tavern, trying to find reasons to talk to each other. The best way to get around that is combat. You just throw a combat encounter in there, get everyone involved, and instantly the awkwardness is gone because everyone's focusing on staying alive and trying out their new cool abilities that they've got. So I had the tavern be quite quiet, and I planned to have basically one regular drinking at the bar, a bored tavern keeper behind the bar, and a couple of strangers in from foreign parts, and of course those strangers are the players. And just as it's getting to closing time and the players are wondering whether they should go upstairs and buy rooms or go elsewhere, none of them have interacted yet, the door opens and essentially a zombie bursts in. I should say as well, I planned this out and it worked quite well in the night. I made sure to ask all the players like how they sit in the bar, how they engage with the space. Are they off in a corner watching the door? Are they quite confident chatting to the bartender up at the bar? Just giving them a little moment to, for each other's sake, display their characteristics and how they operate in public, which is a good way to kind of get a bit of flavour for the character. But anyway, the inciting incident was a zombie powered by clockwork. His heart has been removed and it was replaced by a strange clockwork device. This sort of undead automaton bursts through the door and starts going nuts, kills or almost kills the local regular who's drinking at the bar, and is going to set about the tavern keeper. And of course the tavern keeper, a little village person not able to defend themselves, the players leap up, get into the fray, and take down this clockwork zombie. And instantly we're off to a great start. All the players get a little chance to flex their new characters a little bit, see what their characters and their builds are capable of, and they all have a little bonding moment because they all were engaged in the same dangerous situation and helped each other survive it. It also creates an interesting question. Instantly, they go, okay, this is a zombie, we're playing a horror setting, that makes sense. But then they go, what's this weird clockwork device built into its chest? Something else is going on here. Something artificial and man-made is going on behind the zombie. So there's a big question mark that all of them are now kind of eager to answer. My next plan was basically to quickly get them to a clear objective. We've got past the initial awkwardness of the tavern opening and all the characters being brought together by the inciting incident. Now we need a reason for them to stay together for at least a little while. We have the local constable arrive. This is kind of the local lawman who is, a bit older, usually deals with maybe some sheep theft or a bar fight. Now he's got a clockwork zombie lying on the floor of the local tavern, and he's like, this is above my pay grade. So he sees these competent outsiders who've shown up, taken down the zombie, and goes, oh, great, I can offload this problem onto them. So he goes to them and says, look, we have reason to believe that the zombie came from the moors to the east, because the zombie is actually the resurrected body of a minstrel who passed through here a few weeks ago and went out in the moors, and we never saw him again. He said he was heading east and we didn't expect to see him again. Now he's back and he's an undead automaton. So please go out in the moors, try to find out what's going on, and I'll pay you. And he offers to pay them a little bit just for going out in the moors, and quite a sizable chunk more if they can resolve the issue and find out who's putting weird clockwork devices into dead bodies on the moors. So immediately the players have a very clear objective, and I even made clear to them roughly where on the moors they should look. The minstrel said he was going to stop off at an old standing stone ring because he wanted to develop a song that he was working on. He thought the ring would kind of give him inspiration and the history of the ring and all that. So he went to see these old standing stones, the stone ring, and he was hoping to, get in tune with the story he was writing, and obviously died in the process. So the players know there's a location on the moors they can go to that will probably yield answers, and they set off the next day. So even at this point, I don't need to worry about how long they're going to stay together. I know they're going to stay together as a party until they've resolved this little mini quest, and by that time they'll be getting kind of comfortable with each other and hopefully taking a liking to each other. And then we get to our second combat encounter. I wanted to make the first session quite combat heavy, and so when they get up to the standing stones to investigate, the sun is setting. It's getting quite dark and quite kind of ominous, dark clouds overhead, and while they're rooting around here, wolves attack, dire wolves. Now, it's a bit of a meme in the D&D community to say that the worst kind of encounters are the ones where you just throw some wolves at the players, and it's not really plot focus, it's just a random encounter. But I actually really like this because, firstly, dire wolves are really fun. If you have a pack of dire wolves attacking and they're getting the benefit of pack tactics and they're dragging players down onto the ground and knocking them prone, you can get a really fun sort of strategical encounter where the players are trying to keep the wolves apart to make them less dangerous, and it can be quite intense. The wolves move quite fast, they have like 50 feet of movement, and the other cool thing is that these players are all fresh out of a campaign in which they were at sort of god tier power levels. Wolves were nothing to them, and now to bring them back into the sense of being at the gritty bottom of the ladder with no plot armor and no sense that they're going to necessarily be great heroes, they have to work their way up. They're now at death's door because they're being attacked by a couple of wolves, and we got a really fun, intense encounter on the night. It was actually quite terrifying because I thought one of the players was going down, and yeah, that was actually surprisingly successful. So we've got a second combat encounter. We've had a weird clockwork zombie and a pack of wolves out on the moor. The players are getting warmed up, and as the last wolf goes down, the sun is setting, darkness falls. They're thinking about maybe going back to the town because they've not found any sign of foul play around the stones, and then they look up into the hills. They see off in the distance a little light glowing. It looks like a cave with a lantern in it. They think, that's weird, there shouldn't be anyone in these hills. They're known to be pretty uninhabited. And so we end the session with them setting off in the direction of the cave with a lantern. I had actually planned more in the original session for the what they would find in the cave. But as is always the case, especially with the first session, things take a lot longer than you expect. So on the night, we only got as far as the end of the wolf fight. Next session, we'll get to the second part of what I'd planned for the first session, which is that they get up to the cave and they find that essentially a sort of almost like a half necromancer, half artificer is up there bringing monsters and people and corpses essentially back to life by inserting clockwork contraptions into their bodies. And she seems to be working for some other person. She has letters which seem to be orders telling her to perfect her methods and help build this army of clockwork undead automatons, but it's not clear who's behind the letters, who's paying her to do this. So the players will presumably get through that. They will survive quite an intense encounter. Halfway through the encounter, before while the players are being held off by some of the lower level zombies, the necromancer artificer is able to resurrect using clockwork a manticore, which then obviously spreads its wings and is like the sort of boss of the encounter. They'll sort all that out. I hope they'll survive, and they'll go back to town. They'll get paid, and then, because I've kind of pre-arranged some of the locations I know they're all going to, all their paths kind of lead in the same direction. At least for another couple of days, they'll all be on the road together. And so the constable is going to say to them, look, I paid you everything I can pay you, but please take word of this in this strange situation to the capital, which is kind of on their road, and tell them what's happened, and they might be able to give you a bit more money as kind of recompense for carrying this troubling news that someone's trying to build a clockwork zombie army. And so the players will have a little bit more reason to stick together, and will continue on their roads, will have more adventures, and will hopefully become increasingly fused as an adventuring party. So that is basically what I'm doing for the first session, what I did for the first session, and what I'll be doing for the second session. And I hope that's given you just some ideas of how you might approach the first session of a new campaign, how you might approach a one-shot where you're trying to bring all the players together very fast and get them into the action. I think when you're starting with new players or with new characters, it can be awkward. Even if the players all know each other well and are experienced, it really helps to get to the action, bring the combat right to the players, give them very clear goals. It kind of takes the pressure off them to have to immediately find their feet in roleplay. It's almost like, okay, I'll work out who my character is as I go along. In the meantime, I'll focus on surviving this fight with a direwolf. And I'm a great believer in kind of, especially early on, giving players plenty of structure to work within, and then as they become more confident, taking some of that structure away and letting them get off the rails and do what it is they want to do, and letting them take the lead. But initially, I don't think there's any harm in taking the lead a little bit as the DM and saying, no, here's the stuff you can do, here's the prepared content, go and do it, and then go on to do whatever else you want to do after that. Anyway, that is me, that's the video. I think I'll be able to put this out without any edits, which might be my very first video without like a random cut halfway through, which is very exciting. Thank you so much for watching. As always, just a reminder that my produced scripted videos will continue to appear on the channel, hopefully every week this year. That's the plan at any rate, we'll see how that goes. But these more relaxed videos will also pop up in between them. And if you have any suggestions or questions for topics you'd like me to cover, drop them in the comments below. We'll talk about them in these more relaxed conversational videos. If I get enough questions over the course of a couple of these videos, I might do a video where I just answer some questions. But these videos can be anything we want them to be. They're just relaxed hangouts, essentially. So look after yourselves, and we'll catch up in the next video.